What's going on, Stim junkies? Hi, Stim Ace here, and welcome to my debut episode of. Well, I don't really have a name for this show. I don't even know if we're going to end up making the show out of this. It might be a thing that is a one and done, or I might actually have guests once in a while to talk about different stuff, supplements, fitness, gym bro lifestyle, anything, what have you, things that we are all interested in as Stim junkies, or should I say, hi, Stim pre workout enthusiasts. But today, guys, I have the distinct honor of presenting us SuppLocker's owner, and my personal friend, my good friend Evan. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, good. Ace, really appreciate you having me, man. It's an honor to be on. You've been such an inspiration for my small business from pretty much day one, man. So it's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you coming on, man. And I had to have you on because it's an interesting story how we met. If I recall correctly, we actually met on the pre-workout supplement subreddit, right? You were posting about the Helios pre-workout. The
Yep.
review bros were reviewing it, if I'm not mistaken. And then I reached out to you via Instagram, sorry, via Reddit. You didn't even have an Instagram until I told you about it. And we connected on Reddit initially. Am I right about that? Or am I
Yes,
forgetting?
100%, man. Absolutely. That's the story. I mean, I was new in every single which way, man. No Reddit presence, no real social media, and you were like, "Hey, man, check out, keep doing the thing on Reddit, but you got to get an Instagram. It's the way to go." And within a week, I had my first little post up, and you were giving me props and explaining the difference between stories and posts and reels and all that good stuff. So, tribute so much of that to you.
Bro, you know it's funny because I am not a big social media guy at all, and I actually never even had an Instagram until it was time for me to, make this channel. I rebranded from Isaac's Health and Fitness, which was just like a little blog for me and my friends. I had like maybe 50 subscribers, and I rebranded to High Stim Ace when I decided to go full on with this. And it wasn't until then that I decided to make an Instagram. And I'll be honest, I even have people pushing me to do TikTok, but I don't know. I see TikTok as something that 12, 13-year-old girls are into doing dances and stuff. And I don't know. It just really turns me off. I know there's people in their 40s that are on TikTok, but I feel like those people are just trying to cling on to whatever's in at the moment and they're trying to be hip and cool. I find it pretty cringy. That's just me. I'm sorry if that's an unpopular opinion, but Heistemaze does not have a TikTok. I don't know. It's just very weird to me.
Yeah. I second that, man, for sure. I'm in the same boat as you. It's like, I'm 38, coming on 40 now. I don't know if it's like an age gap thing, but I just don't get it. I tried doing some TikTok marketing. It was flagging all my products like any which way to Sunday. Couldn't even get it to work, and I bowed out. I said IG is the way to go.
Bro, and speaking of flagging products, we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the FDA. The FDA is not safe here because we are in the FDA-proof high-stim bunker, okay? So the FDA is not off limits today, and we're going to be talking about it because they've been giving my friend Evan a lot of trouble. Our mutual friend Matt from Masscast has been dealing with a lot of BS as well. So, the FDA always has an eye for us. They're not going to talk about all the people doing illegal stuff that actually requires to be looked at. But us, gym bros, trying to catch a little buzz and channel it towards something positive, training, something that we're passionate about. God forbid, man. But we are going to talk about that. That is coming up. But I want to get started, first with like a little bit of an introduction about you, about your background, when it comes to supplements, when it comes to the gym lifestyle, when you started training, what drew you into this whole world? Because, I have my own story and maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't. But today is all about you. You're the focal point of this conversation. So tell me, what brings you personally to the supplement industry? Give me a little bit of background about training, about fitness supplements, and what it is that you're trying to achieve with SuppLocker.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to break it down and kind of go back to square one. So I first got into fitness and weightlifting when I was 17. I was working my first kind of like dishwashing job at a restaurant. Had a good buddy of mine in high school that was, on the wrestling team, played football. He started, just inviting me. He's like, "Hey, let's get a lift in." And completely new to it, man. I remember those milestones, like the first time I hit 135 on bench, 225, all that good stuff, and I was hooked. I mean, lifted pretty considerably for probably till my mid 20s or so, and just enjoyed it. It was an awesome way to relieve stress, coming back from like a bad day at work, etc. So I really enjoyed it. I loved, I'd go through half my paychecks sometimes on supplements. I'd go into the GNC and you know being newer to it too, didn't really understand a lot of it. I'd let them just kind of sell me like hook, line, and sinker, and then over time you kind of wise up, right? You're like, all right, I'm tired of spending all this money, and you learn what works for you. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Through my late 20s and 30s, I got off track a little bit with just being consistent with lifting. We had welcomed my first boy into the world when I was 28, and kind of just got off track there. Had to focus on like the corporate job and this, that, and the other. But more recently, with COVID and everything too, I got my job work from home fully for like 3 years, and I built a home gym and just went balls to the wall with it. So really got back in the space, and I'd wanted to back in probably 2019, 2020, just develop my own pre-workout, but funds were tight at the time. I mean, even that $3,000 or $4,000 just to kind of bootstrap it and get it going was kind of out of my play money at the time. And fast forward a couple years, I had some leave time with the birth of my second baby boy Hudson in October of last year, and had a month off. And I just, maybe it was too much time to think, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just take a look and see what businesses are out there. Found SuppLocker for sale, talked to the owner, purchased it, bing, bam, boom, and pretty much fast forward a couple of months, and now I've got my own pre-workout. So nothing too crazy, but yeah, it all happened pretty quickly.
That's pretty incredible, man. And yeah, we are going to talk about lockdown because I was a little bit involved with it. You did consult me about a couple of stuff, and I did test it out early on, and I gave you, a little bit of advice, my initial feedback. So we're definitely going to talk about lockdown. That is coming up a little bit later. But yeah, man, it's just funny, a little bit off topic, but during the pandemic, you mentioned you made like a little home gym and you're doing with it, and it just kind of ignited memories in my head, man. So, the whole thing is in the gyms, they wouldn't let you go in
Yep.
initially without a mask. And then you had to show the card, that you got the little jippy jab going. And that was that was a whole thing. I actually made a fake card that I used for a little while,
Oh, nice.
but the lines were yeah, but the lines were unbearable, and it was just such an uncomfortable feeling. Imagine you're taking your pre-workout and you're excited to go to the gym. It's kicking in, you're ready to roll, and there's a line of about 60 people in front of you, and they're letting in like 2 to 3 people at once, and they had the little ticker. So I remember deciding to go the gym home route, but of course I live in a small studio, so I said, let me just get some basic 40-pound dumbbells, and even if I do a crap ton of reps, it's better than not doing anything. Calisthenics, resistance bands, and a 40-pound dumbbell set. So those usually, if you get them from like Walmart or whatever, they're going to cost you like what, $50, not more than like 50, $55.
Yep.
Bro, they were jacking up the prices on eBay for like 200, $220 for a basic cheap ass adjustable dumbbell set. And being that I am high stim ace, I had to get it
Yep.
because, I got to pump a little bit of iron. So I guess things are worth what you're willing to pay for them. Same as some of us getting the, Excelsior pre-workouts paying $120 for it, which, it's insane. But here I am,
Yep.
6 or 7 tubs later. So it is what it is. It's very, very interesting. But now going back to SuppLocker, because this
Mhm.
is about you and about SuppLocker, how do you specifically see yourself standing out from other vendors? And I know there's a lot of established vendors out there, but you being relatively new to the space and, in my opinion, already making a big splash, a big wave on the industry, what differentiates you specifically from all the other vendors that are out there?
Yeah. Yeah, great question, right? So, I mean, I realized pretty early on, I'm not working with a $100,000 budget, right? I don't have loans, tons of working capital. So, I really had to ask myself, like, how can I differentiate and find a competitive advantage? I think for me, one of the things I really leaned in on was just be Johnny on the spot with customer service. So, if I don't have the most products, well, deliver the products I do have as quick as I can, right? If there's an issue with shipping, or if somebody's maybe dissatisfied, blah, 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 it's their first purchase, hook them up with a discount code the next time. Like, no matter what the issue is, I really try to lean in and just have excellent customer service, and sometimes that means simple things just done multiple times, being very consistent with being responsive. So that's a text, that's an email, that's a store chat, that's an IG message. I mean, really just being there to show, I'm here, I'm not going to put you on the back burner. Your order, your concerns, it's not going to fall to the wayside. So that's one piece I think that's been part of, I attribute to what success I've had so far. And I'd say the other piece is I like to think, I humble myself to the community quite a bit. Like, I have some experience with certain pre-workouts and some of the stuff like Jacked and Gackic back in the day, but there's been like a 15-year void since the time I was really into a lot of that stuff. So much has changed. So I have to rely on, what's hot, what are the community subject matter experts saying. So I try with, again, with my budget, right, to meet that. Like, if I've got somebody like you or Gym Dad or Garage Gym Homie, somebody reaches out and just says, hey, you need to get this, take a look at this. I'll do what I can to try to source it. I mean, no guarantees, but I'm at least gonna listen and try to, really, really deliver on that.
So yeah, like using that as an example, when it came to Apollo Nutrition, you reached out to me and you said, Ace, I know you have an in with them, and I want to get some of their products because of community feedback. They want some of those more daily medium use products, the pump formulas, the super loaded ones, the non-stim. And you reached out to me and we worked it out. We made it happen. So that was definitely based on community feedback. And I do see you on the subreddit. I don't go on there that often anymore. I'll be honest. I had a bad experience about a year ago, maybe a little bit less, and I
Sure.
kind of went away for a little while. I came back, and things are more or less okay, but I'm not really there that often. But I keep my, what's the saying? Keep my finger on the pulse, right?
Yep.
To kind of know what's going on. I know that this new pre-workout's coming out and people are kind of chatting about it. There's a little bit of a buzz going. So I keep my ear to the ground. I try to keep up with what's the latest stuff. It's very difficult to keep up with everything because there's so much product and inventory coming out in this day and age. Every day there's a new pre-workout brand coming out. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah. No, I think
But
you make a good point too. And just to piggyback off that too, I mean, that's been another really big learning lesson for me, especially as a kind of a smaller player, right? You have to really like beat it into your head and say, look, you can't please everyone all the time. So, you know, you can't stock 100 products a week and bring in everything new. You got to kind of trust your gut that you've made the right decision. And, that's a learning lesson too, is trying to have broad shoulders, right? Like if somebody doesn't like your shop or basically wants to shit on you, you gotta brush it off and kind of move on. Like that's been an important part too. You got to focus on, the customers that are going to rep you, the people in your community that support you, and kind of just focus on the good vibes and keep at it. So that's been another learning lesson for me.
absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, feedback, being good to the community and having good customer service and how that is important to you. To me, there's nothing more important than customer service. Even just reaching up, like having a follow up and making sure everything went okay. It's the little touches that really add a human level to it that makes you feel different than ordering from some mass production website or from somewhere like a Walmart. Having that personal mom and pop shop vibe, so
Yep.
to speak, over the internet. And I know you're that kind of person because you are very friendly. And even before were affiliated together, you're always reaching out to me when you're sending me those initial pre-workouts to test that, the Helios and the SVG, and
Hmm.
you were very good at communicating from day one. And that's why I knew we would have a good relationship because we are very similar in that regard.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So now going into the more specifics, we're going to talk about lockdown because lockdown is your debut pre-workout. And I know there's other things that you're doing in-house. We're going to discuss that a little bit later. We do have a
Sure.
segment dedicated for that. But in terms of the pre-workout lockdown, what was the thought process that really went into it? Like to differentiate that from all the other DMHA pre-workouts, because let's face it, they're a dime a dozen. There's a lot of ones that claim DMHA. Some of them do have it in there. Some of them are bullshit. They'll put a different research chemical that kind of mimics it or whatever.
Mhm.
But your product, the lockdown, claims DMHA. It also claims amp citrate, albeit not at a super high dose, but just enough to kind of give you that dialed in focus, which I personally felt. So I do think it is well sourced amp. That is my personal opinion. I've had nothing but good experiences with the lockdown pre workout. But take it away, my friend. Tell me about the thought process, lockdown, and if there's any sort of special variant that might come down in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I kind of first stepped back into the space with the business and got in good with kind of the high stem crowd, I was sourcing, I was getting samples off of, Resco, some of these different sites, and really just trying to get quickly ramped up and brought up to speed, right? And I tried a lot of the crack variants and, that kind of super high stem, aggressive alpha yo, caffeine kind of stem bomb. It's like, it just wasn't me. I realized that some people love that. Just for me personally, it wasn't, as much the types that I really vibe with. It almost is
Was
like a,
that Crack the OG, the one with the crazy flaming skeleton on the top?
yes, yeah. I did a one scoop and a two scoop on that, and I maybe got cocky with the two scoops, man. But it was, I think on the two scoops, I recall like I couldn't even do my workout. I think I got a set in, and I just felt like I don't even know how to describe it. Like almost like anxiety. Like it was just too much. And I'm like, I got to distance myself from this, get some sleep, and come back at it. So, I also tried ones, Aventador and Dark Horse and some of those, and those were more what I was vibing with, right? Like I'm a pretty mellow guy overall, so I think it almost like matches my personality. I talked to Gino on Optimal a little bit during my interview with him, and to me, I think that there's subsections of the community that like they look at you have to have this crazy holy grail of a pre-workout to get a workout done. I maybe just come from more of a purist standpoint. Like I'm okay to get a workout in with or without a pre-workout. It adds to it, but it doesn't make my workout, if that makes sense, right? It's a tool in the toolkit. So I always say that. So, at the end of the day, I really just like ones that, are clean, smooth, they add to and accentuate my workout, but I don't feel like I only got my workout done because I had that, if that makes sense.
No, that's a good point. And me, especially as a reviewer, I got to make sure not to rely too much on the crazy stuff. And I love the crazy stuff. I'm high stim ace, in case you guys didn't know, right? So obviously, I have a certain reputation to uphold, and I do run the crazy stuff twice a week, sometimes three.
Yep.
Saturdays and Sundays are usually when I run the crazy stuff, and sometimes on Wednesday I like doing what I call midweek madness. Just to kind of spice up hump day a little bit and make it a little bit more fun. But it all depends on my schedule. Depends if I have to record afterwards. Depends how many stuff I have to review. I'm not able to run a lot of pre-workouts that I want to run that I enjoy on a personal level because I have a lot of stuff to review, and I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form. I love doing this, but at the same time, sometimes you don't get to run the stuff you want, until a couple of weeks afterwards. But when I do run that stuff, I do enjoy it. Yeah. But going back to what you were saying, because I am a reviewer, I need to keep my tolerance balanced. So that way when they do send me a daily driver like Core Nutritionals or like Huge Core or a Pollen Gym Classic, something that has like 250 milligrams of caffeine and no exotic stimulants, I need to still be able to feel that, right? So I will always cycle off the crazy stuff for at least like 3, 4 days, and then I will do the review after having ran whatever daily like at least 2 times. That's how I do it personally, just to make
Sure.
sure the experience lines up and is consistent. Sometimes I run things 3, 4 times. It really, really depends on the product and what prior knowledge I have of it. But yeah, no, I agree with you on the point you're trying to make that you don't have to run the crazy stuff. It's a bonus. It's a
Yep.
tool, like you said, but it's not a necessity.
Yep.
So about lockdown.
Yeah, yeah, and with lockdown, I really tried to design one that kind of vibed with some of the ones like Dark Horse, Aventador, and I was looking at again kind of what was popular at the time. I was breaking down like Menyako, some of these other blends, and kind of just like I had like a little diagram right with a couple of different formulas, and I like to think I was just kind of like mind mapping, kind of taking the best and cherry picking things, and ultimately that's where I landed right with lockdown. And I had one revision. I decided along the way, I know with some of the flavors and stuff, and to add a little bit of the synephrine. I had a batch that had some alpha yo in it, and I took it and just wasn't my thing. So that was part of the decision to kind of keep that out of there. And there's always room to play with that down the road. But I'm really pleased with lockdown. I mean, it's one that I've taken 4 times in a week and never had any issues with. And now that the dust is settled, like basically right at 2 months after launch, just seeing reviews come in, getting a lot of those like high fives, thumbs up, and stuff like that. Really, really pleased with it. So I'd say it's a huge success. Really proud.
Absolutely. I consider it a well-rounded stim junkie pre-workout, because you're getting the focus, you have the mood elevation with it, which I think is the main component that it's not like a high type of euphoria, but it's bordering. It's a
Yep.
notch and a half below that high euphoria. Very good head buzz, but not to the point where it overtakes you. You're still in the driver's seat. You're still in control. It's not like taking Smash AMF or Excelsior
Yep.
and you're on autopilot and the pre-workout's doing anything,
Yes.
everything, I mean. But it's a very good experience. And one of the most underrated aspects of it are the pumps, man, because you got 8 grams of citrulline in there. And I think you had like one or two more pump ingredients. And bro, you don't have to stack anything. I don't have to stack magnify caps. I don't have to add my own citrulline. It's good as is, so you're getting about a 20, 21 gram scoop, whatever it was, but you're getting everything you need in there. And it tapers off very nicely. There's no crash, no stimmy willy, which is, a big plus.
Yep.
So, it's overall a very well-rounded product. And,
Yep.
thank you for bringing it to the market. And whatever comes next, we shall see. We will definitely be teasing whatever comes next. And I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff coming.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And just to kind of touch on that, I mean, the piece with lockdown too that I found interesting is I like to say that I sort of strategized and planned it like this, but it was definitely something I realized after the fact is, it's not the highest on caffeine, right? So when you do start to, come down a little bit, maybe you're towards the end of your workout, what I find really cool is back to that pump thing. Like you start looking at yourself, you're vascular, you're looking juicy. To me, it's almost like a mental trigger. It's like that's what's going to kind of push you over the hurdle to really finish out the workout. It's not all the stims. It's just you're feeling good, you're seeing yourself look good. It's kind of a nice little mental driver. So I kind of like how like the flow of the whole experience actually ended up too. That was something I didn't really anticipate.
Bro, I hear you on that because a lot of times when I'm in the gym, even if I'm getting tired, but I'm having one of those days where I'm looking juicy and the veins are popping and I'm looking good,
Yep.
it encourages me to do even a couple more and kind of push beyond exhaustion, which a lot of times I kind of regret the next morning. But while I'm there in the moment and you're surrounded by people training, and I'll go another 15, 20 minutes, get in a couple more reps, couple more sets, and really just like finish it out because the pump in and of itself is a motivator. Say what you will, but there is a little bit of narcissism involved with training and whatnot, and that's not a bad thing,
Yep.
considering the fact that most people that go to the gym have their own background, have their own story, have their own journey that they're on. I don't want to take up too much time, but me being formerly morbidly obese at 396 pounds, having a fatty liver, and being a weed addict for close to 11 years, the gym was pretty much what saved my life, and it changed me for the better in every aspect of my life. It made me work harder, it made me be more disciplined, more focused, more driven, more motivated in day-to-day stuff. And I attribute all that to the gym and to training. So, you know, it's an amazing thing. But anyway, I want to get into the next topic here, because you mentioned Maniaco, and you touched upon some other Dark Labs products in the past. And I know you've tried your share of products. You mentioned Aventador, you mentioned Dark Horse, which both great products, by the way. What are some of your favorite products, like in this day and age, and also from the past? Because I know you've been doing this a little bit before me. I'm only in the game for like 6.5 years at this point, so my first experience with like the illicit shit was Dark Energy. That was like my baby. That's what introduced me to DMAA. And honestly, to this day, I'm still chasing the high from Dark Energy. I have two tubs, but they're both way past expired and they hit at like 20, 30%. So you have just like a tease, just a little bit of that happy feeling, but
Sure.
it's nowhere near those fresh batches. So I'm forever chasing that high. But you mentioned Jack 3D and all that other stuff back in the day. What are some of your favorite products that have been long discontinued, and what are some of your favorite currently in this day and age?
Yeah, I mean, I think back in kind of like my heyday when I was starting out, I mean, it was the Jack 3D. And, it's weird. I don't know if I didn't take it enough. I mean, I really don't have crazy memories of it either which way. Like I remember it being intense, but I think it was so new to market at the time. It's like you almost didn't have anything else within the same category to compare it to. Versus these days, we've got plenty of higher stim euphoric type pre's out there. So it was an interesting one. I definitely remember like purchasing that and kind of being shocked. There was a cool product, and I think you can still get it. At least 3 or 4 years ago, you could, but it was by Muscle Tech, and it's called Gakic, and it's a pill form. I don't even know if it's marketed as a pre-workout, but you can certainly use it as such. It's whatever compound chemical composition. I can't begin to explain it, but I took that back in the day when I was in high school and early college. I mean, it was the kind of thing, when we were pushing for 225 bench and things like that, you'd get like a 15% bench or lift increase just off of your very first serving. Like it was very, very
Wow.
intense. It was, the physical energy, but also just like the fuck you sort of mental push. Like it made you just kind of like you push everything out of the way and you just dial in and do it, and it's you kind of tell yourself like I'm gonna do it or I'm gonna die. So very strong product. Encourage you to check that out. I'll send it to you if I can find it, but I know they've made a couple of revisions. These days, I mean, I'm not taking 30 or 40 or anything like that. I've gotten into like Dark Horse. I really enjoyed Wildfire. I picked up, and I actually think it may have been one of the later batches, but I've really enjoyed it. Like it vibes with me pretty well overall. And I had some Zeus from Ruesco that I really like too, but I don't
Ooh,
think it
what'd you
was the
think? What'd you think of
original.
that?
What's that?
Yeah, it probably wasn't. It probably wasn't the original one.
Yeah, I mean, and I liked it though. I actually found, it was pretty productive for me. Those are probably some of the big ones that I've done recently. And of course, lockdown, I've been trying to run that 2 or 3 times a week regularly too. And hey, it's been consistent. So that's another thing I'm really pleased with.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you have your own pre-workout, you're going to be running that more than
Oh yeah.
other pre-workouts. That makes sense, you know. I'm sure one day when I have my own pre-workout, then I'll be doing that too. There may be something in the works, but we're going to announce that at another point. There was something I wanted to ask you. Oh, Excelsior. Have you ran Excelsior or Thermal Spark?
So Jim Dad sent me some like maybe 5 servings of Excelsior. I've taken it twice. I can't tell you what actual batch it is, but I know it's one with the ribbed lid, and it's definitely like a later batch. Yeah, but I thought it was pretty solid overall. Like it definitely, I was very, very focused, feeling good, vibing. Maybe just like a little kind of tinge of like some thermogenesis, like halfway, excuse me, like halfway through the workout there. But I also felt like there's that part of me that still wants to experience like the OG, like the original stuff in some of the earlier batches, because I've just heard so much about it, and maybe the samples that I had didn't quite meet where I thought it was going to be.
So I'm going to tell you one thing right off the bat. If you said that the experience was pretty good, I think those were the words you said. It was solid, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Then you probably didn't have one of the good batches because Excelsior is literally magic. If you get one of the good batches, the one I'm using right now is 1025. I did just finish a 726, and I
Okay.
have another sealed 726 in my luggage, which has all my end of the world stats, in case we do end up going into Armageddon one of
Yeah.
these days. I have an entire luggage full of crack purple, crack gold, Excelsior, Smash, whole bunch of stuff that you're pretty much not able to get the OG formulas for anymore. But Excelsior is really it's a special one, as is Thermal
Hmm.
Spark, but it's kind of annoying that they're batch dependent. So you do have to rely on the community, whether it's Reddit or Anabolic Minds forums or whatever, to kind of do research. People end up taking a risk, shelling out $120 or whatever just to get the tub to research it or whatever. But
Yeah.
the way I like taking Excelsior, and I don't really reveal this, but this is kind of my little methodology. So say it's Saturday morning, right? I wake up at 9, whatever, do my morning routine about 30 minutes after waking up, when I know I still like got to shave or whatever, do my stuff, I will take a flat scoop of Excelsior, which usually comes in at 6 grams. That is the suggested serving size, right? So I will do that. I will take it before I get to the gym, like an hour before I get to the gym, because Excelsior takes time to build. It takes like 40, 45 minutes to get to that place where you're like, aha, I'm in this state of mind right now, and
Hmm.
now we're going to see what's going to happen. It takes about 40, 45 minutes to get there. GGH, the first time I sent him a sample, he started training like 10 minutes after taking it. And he said he didn't feel the feeling until like after the training session, which kind of sucks. I did
Yeah.
tell him to wait, but he didn't listen to me. But what I like to do is take that flat scoop about an hour and 10 minutes before training. And then I make myself another shaker with my pump formula. Usually I'll take like one of those loaded products, like what's the Apollo one? Bare knuckle, right? That one
Yeah.
has the pretty much has the beta alanine, it has the citrulline, the betaine, and all that other stuff fully loaded. And I will take another half a scoop of Excelsior, so 3 more grams, and add it to that second batch and then drink it. So it's almost like it gives you a second wind. Plus, you get all the nootropics, the focus ingredients, the beta alanine tingles, and then I'm ready to go and wreck some shit in the gym. And I'm getting excited just talking about it because I'm already thinking about
Nice.
Heist and Saturday, and I'm getting freaking hopped up thinking about it, man. It's it's crazy. I'm talking too much. I'm babbling. I'm a little hopped up, but
No,
that is
no.
the kind of energy.
Yeah, man, if there's a way to do it or a recommendation, I will gladly keep that in mind next time. Maybe it'll be a whole different experience.
I have so much random information in my head, man. Just different stacks and combinations and stuff. And I should probably make some videos about that stuff because I think it would be very informative to the community. But my head's crazy sometimes, man. But I do want to shift to our next topic, which is going to be peptides, because I'm actually not an expert when it comes to this stuff. I've only dabbled a little bit with what you sent me, being the BPC and the TB
Yep.
and the tesofensine in capsule format. I've never really dabbled with anything else. In general, I'm very wary of needles and stuff like that. It's not really my style,
Sure.
but I am very open minded and I'm always eager to learn. Now, I know you're also learning, it's all a work in progress, but you do deal with some of that stuff. So tell me a little bit about peptides. What draws you specifically to them? And do you believe that it's the future of the fitness industry?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, keep in mind, like when I was handed the SuppLocker business, pretty much every product I had was Yeah, it was very, very illicit. Like there's no other way to say it, right? I had a lot of like some SARM products and things, and I was so new to it. I was, didn't really know kind of what to keep, what was going to move, all this kind of stuff. So I got into the peptides more. I was drawn to them really because a lot of them are just natural, right? They're naturally occurring. They're sourced from things that you already find, in the human body. They're really just kind of lab altered for a desired effect or a desired goal. So I mean, I think that's interesting when you kind of juxtapose that with something like a SARM or even an anabolic or some of these other pro hormone compounds and things like that, right? I like that there's sort of a natural vibe to them. I think it removes a lot of like that psychological safety aspect that people get concerned with some of this stuff. You say it's natural, so that's definitely an appeal for me. As far as like the future of the fitness industry, I mean, I think they're gonna have their place. It's definitely a booming industry. There's quite a bit too if you look on Reddit about like going gray, the gray market, sourcing from you know, other regions. I'll just kind of leave it at that, right? But a lot of people
Yeah.
are kind of getting into like this DIY experimentation because they can't go through like big pharma channels or they can't afford it, so they have to find other means. And I think it's kind of like a fascinating thing to look at, like socially, like how many people are getting into it because they've been denied through big pharma, FDA intervention, all these kinds of things. So that's what draws me to it. I like that it's just another kind of tool in the toolkit. I think it's neat to see, products that are naturally sourced, slightly altered maybe, and how they're composed. Maybe it's adding certain parts to this or certain like a peptide bond and creating a whole new derivative, but to help with a goal, be that, muscle gain, fat loss, things like that, even sleep, appetite suppression, all those kinds of things. I think it's really, really fascinating.
It really is, and I'm starting to learn about it. And I do have conversations with Chat GBT, and I try to learn about it. That's another tool that I like to use just to learn stuff. People rely on that crap way too much, but I do like learning about new things, especially in this field of supplements and whatnot that I'm interested in. Longevity. I'm also somebody that's been dealing with a lot of injuries, inflammation, joint pain over like the last 2 years. I am 35. I mean, I look it, but I am 35, and it does catch up with you after a while, especially when you're stemmed up and you're pumping like a lunatic,
Oh yeah.
and you're not taking a lot of rest days. And I sleep about 5.5, 6 hours a night on a good night. So it all kind of catches up with you after a while. So it is something that I'm looking into. Like I said, so far I've only done the BPC 157, and then I did the BPC TB, which I'm
Mhm.
actually going to be reviewing soon because I'm about to finish my bottle, I think
Awesome.
tomorrow or the day after that. So yeah, we're going to be doing a review. I definitely think it was helpful, maybe not to the level that people would expect, like, oh my God, this is, going to change my life, but definitely for me, worth the money. But we're going to talk about it more in the review. Um, yeah, peptides is interesting. And you mentioned big pharma. And my God, do I have a lot to say about big pharma, because they are raking in the bucks and they're profiting off of people's pain essentially. And they're making this stuff so unaffordable that, if you don't have insurance or whatever, and if you're just somebody that needs to get a certain something and the doctor just gives you a hard time, you don't qualify for it or whatever, man, they just make it so freaking difficult. They're essentially pushing you to the gray market. I mean, what the hell's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit it on the head. Like that's the impetus, right? There's people that, for so many different reasons, if it's financially, psychologically, I mean, who knows all their different life stories, but they can't get the help that they need. I mean, even, my dad was trying to lose weight he had a kidney issue, he needs to get a kidney replacement and stuff like that. And just to qualify to get in the queue for that, he had to lose weight. And he's been denied like 3 different years. He's tried to get on the queue list for that. And, fortunately he was able to get on like some semaglutide product and finally got approved for it through, interestingly enough, being qualified now as like a diabetic. Like it's weird how it works to get, like you said, qualified to get approved for it just so he can go back to lose weight to get a life-saving treatment. So it could have happened 3 years ago in my book and he could have been on the way to health, but it's just all the rigmarole of going through the process. And I think that people just get fed up with it over time. And I'm not going to bring politics into this, but I mean, we saw this so much for everybody did, right? For years with the COVID vaccines. You need to get vaccinated. Oh no, now you need to get twice vaccinated. Now you need to get triple vaccinated. Well, now you need to get vaccinated and boosted. And, I respect everybody from all different decisions, but you kind of take a step back a couple years later and it's like, who are the ones really winning and all that? It's big pharma. And why did they have 75-year, you know, immunity from any kind of adverse effects, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's like it's crazy the amount of control there is in society. And I think the same thing's starting to ring through with like peptides. We saw it with SARMs. We've seen it with the goody goods, like DMHA, et cetera. So yeah, it's a shame.
The more you dig into it, the more you go down the rabbit hole, it gets pretty crazy,
Yep,
and that's why sometimes I rather just be willfully ignorant and just kind of stay away from it, just focus on what it is that I'm doing and just try to kind of ignore the politics around it because it gets very dicey and it's pretty frustrating,
for
but
sure.
in a lot of times, people do get screwed over and it's unfortunate. All right, so we were talking about DMHA a little bit earlier and it just came up in conversation again. Do you personally think that DMHA is going to be officially discontinued? Because there's been a lot of doom and gloom over the past, I don't know, year and a half. I really think a lot of it started when Crack Purple, the DMEA version, got discontinued and reformulated. I think that's when a lot of the little whispers kind of started getting louder, and people are legitimately worried that 2-amino will be discontinued. And, it's hard to make a case against it because you see a lot of companies moving away from it and they're putting in usually the classic combo is when you remove DMHA, you put in Araya and Alfeo. That's kind of like the substitute, if you will. And who knows how long until they go after Araya or after Alfeo. The FDA never stops. God forbid we tackle on the heroin and fentanyl issue, but let's focus on gym bros and their pre-workouts. But I'll give you my thoughts afterwards. But you tell me, Evan, what do you think? Like, do you think it's officially going to be banned one of these days, 2, 3 years down the line?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, there's a lot of nuance around it. I mean, I think the short answer, yeah, I do. I think it's probably inevitable. I mean, we've seen it with DMAA, we've seen it with, even things like ephedra as a stimulant that ran rampant in the military, right? The start of the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns. It's like,
Bro, look what I
oh,
got right over
oh, nice. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and
here.
it's just one of those things, like it's inevitable, right? I think that they're going to find issue with it. There's always going to be, in a weird way, it's like caffeine. It's like, why isn't that banned? I mean, it's a stimulant. If somebody misappropriates it, misuses it, it's as dangerous, things like Tylenol that we can get over the counter, etc. But anyways,
Bro,
with DMHA,
cigarettes.
yeah,
Cigarettes.
right. It's like, why be, you're really picking on such a niche thing, but hey, I don't run the FDA, right? Or whatever. But
Maybe you
yeah,
should.
hey, maybe one day, right? Yeah, but I think it is probably on its way out. I don't really have a say of when, like maybe 2 to 3 years, but I think the reality of it is, I mean, even using the example like we just saw with the Mino Asylum, now they're back as what is that, like a month later as Soma Chems or
Yeah,
Soma.
Somachems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like it's the same thing, right? It's just going to be they're doing their thing and everybody else is going to find a way. I kind of take it back to like when there's a will, there's a way. People expect something, people want a particular experience out of a product, and you can't overregulate that. I think that's really it in layman's terms.
It's just so stupid to me because you know that there's always going to be a demand for these kinds of products. And if DMHA really does get banned to the point that reputable companies aren't going to touch it anymore, there's just going to be another research chemical that comes out that mimics it or whatever, but one with a lot less research behind it and a lot less information behind it. And then you could get potentially something way more dangerous on the market. So why not just stick to what is pretty good? And from what I understand, DMHA is nowhere as nearly as harsh as DMAA. I know because I have my own DMAA, which I did a review on recently from Carolina Chemical. Shouts out to them. And I took that one at 150 milligrams, and I paired it with the Rect pre-workout, which has like a crap ton of nootropics and pump ingredients in there, so it balanced out the experience. But I was still like very much, like hop the hell up. It's a completely different vibe than DMHA. I feel like DMAA is definitely a little bit more stressful on the heart and on the adrenal system, and DMHA is more like floaty, more mental, more of a head high. That's how I see it anyway. But I'm just preaching to the choir. The FDA, they're gonna do whatever they want to do, but I just think it's so stupid. They're gonna find some other research chemical from China or something, and then they're gonna bring that over, and that's gonna be the new DMHA. It's so pointless, man. What the hell's even the point, right?
Yeah, no, you make a wonderful point. I mean, it's like it's never going to go away. You're just pushing. It's kind of like you've got a what's that old analogy? Like you're trying to like push water in a tub or something or in a container. Like it doesn't ever really go away. It just moves around, right? Like it's the same kind of
Mm.
concept. You're not going to do away with it forever. You're going to see things, in my opinion, it's just going to pop up more like kill switch types where you've got these kind of bathroom blends that are coming up, not a whole lot of traceability. And some people like that, and it's just going to be a little bit, I'd say, less mainstream than like a Dark Labs brand, right? Or kind of how they've grown and everything like that. Flashy website, this, that, and the other. But I don't think you'll ever do away with it. And you make another good point too when you talk about like bigger fish to fry. Like, why aren't we going after the fentanyl, the opioid crisis, and all this stuff? Because for the certain people within this niche or within this space, man, do they start turning to that for the same experience or whatever? And like that's, 1,000 times more dangerous, right? So it's a good point.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because a lot of times when I'm browsing on the subreddits, a lot of people are saying what pre-workout can give me an experience closest to Adderall, or stuff like that, or whatever other drugs they use, and I've never, I was a pothead for 11 years, but I never crossed that line because I felt like if I ever crossed that line, trying mushrooms or ecstasy or cocaine, which I had opportunities to try all that stuff at parties and whatnot. I never did. I never crossed that next step because I know, okay, if I'm gonna mess with that stuff, then I'm fucked. This is gonna be I'm gonna go down a path that there's no return from. So I never dabbled with that stuff, but it's
Yeah.
funny when people are constantly on the subreddit there and they're talking about like, oh, what can I do to replicate Adderall? I'm going to the club tonight. Should I take a scoop and a half of Excelsior? Like, no, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's a pre-workout. Utilize it for what it's made for. It's so silly.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
addict behavior right there.
Yeah, yeah, and there's it is silly, man. I just saw something even from like GGH the other day. He was talking about how he takes high stim pre's, like it was like a weird kind of like celebration sort of deal. He's like, I'm proud, I take all these high stim pre's and I take I think he referenced Phenibut for like a sleep aid, and that was developed in my understanding for like Russian cosmonauts in the 1960s for obviously their space endeavors and stuff. So like if it was good enough for them to be considered, what's so bad if somebody wants to take it to get to sleep? Could it be any worse than Ambien, for instance? I mean, there's so much stuff going on with
Mm.
Ambien and all this over the years. It's like, give me a break. Let people just, buzz off is all I can really say.
I'll tell you a funny story about Phenibut because this wasn't like one of our topics, but you mentioned it, so we're going to talk about it. One of my friends used to be very heavy into nootropics and into stuff, and also he was very into Adderall. This dude like literally went to college and he lived off of Adderall, lost a lot of weight during that time. I was kind of looking into it at one point. I was trying to get some, but he told me, Isaac, knowing you and your personality, don't take Adderall because you're going to love it so much that it's going to ruin everything else for you. There's not going to be a high stimase anymore. You're going to be high Adderall Ace or
Yeah.
whatever. You're just gonna be popping that stuff left and right. So I took his advice to heart and I never took it. But one of his pieces of advice that I did not take to heart was about Phenibut because I brought it up to him before I even knew what it was. And he's like, don't take it. It's super addictive, whatever. I've read horror stories and whatnot. I've probably been taking Phenibut for about a year now, very responsibly, and I never once got like a withdrawal from it or anxiety when I didn't take it after a while because I stick to my rules. I make these rules for myself and they're for my own safety and protection. I take a Phenibut sleep aid usually once a week, sometimes not even every week, every other week. Take it on a Friday night where I know I can sleep in, get those 8.5 hours. I feel refreshed, I feel good, but it's not something that I rely on. Like you said at the top of this interview, these are supplements and they're there to kind of to give us a boost, and you don't really need them. They're there to help us out. We can achieve everything on our own, but these are just supplements meant to supplement whatever little gaps we have. But tell me about Phenibut. Like, you ever dabbled with it for sleep aids, for relaxation?
Yeah, I mean, I've taken it, when I got the business, there was a product I was stocking and it was really well received, and I liked it. I mean, it's not really my cup of tea like in the long run because I don't really have a lot of, sleep issues. I've never really done like melatonin or had anything like that, but it's solid. And I mean, of course, there's always going to be folks that, use it maybe more recreationally, not really for the intended purpose, but I think it's important. Like if you're taking it as a mature adult, right? And there's something to be said about how you market it. But yeah, if you're doing things in the right doses, you should live and let be is kind of how I feel about it by and large, right? So
Yep.
that's my take.
So I'm going to tell you one more experience I had with
Yeah.
Phenibut because I said I only use it in sleep aids. Actually, that is not necessarily true. There's one more specific case where I do utilize it with a very specific other product. So
Hmm.
you're familiar with Edge of Insanity, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So I don't know if you know this, but the original formula, or at least the version that was out before this one, actually had Phenibut in it instead of GABA, right? So yeah, it was basically there to kind of offset the craziness from, all the Alpha-O. They got the Yohimbine Alpha-O blend, which I think it's one of the best sourced Alpha-Os and Yohimbines because the buzz I get from it, it's like, again, I've never tried Coke or anything like that, but I imagine that that's what Coke would feel like, just like speedy, but with its own kind of euphoric buzz,
Yep.
but very, very high energy driven. I freaking love this. Honestly, this pre workout I like more than a lot of DMHA pre workouts. It's
Sure.
just that freaking good.
Yep.
But what I like to do, because this version does have GABA in there, I think at 1 gram, instead of the Phenibut, which I think it used to have back in the day, also at 1 gram. By the way, massive dose. Never take 1 gram of Phenibut at your first time. What I like to do once in a while, heist and Saturday, heist and Sunday, I like taking my Edge of Insanity and adding 1 capsule of Phenibut, which has 500 milligrams in there. So it's a starter dose, but I find that 500 milligrams of Phenibut with the GABA that's already in here, with the Yohimbine and all that craziness, it just makes it such a well synergized experience. And I've never talked about it on video, but it just kind of came up in conversation now. But if you're ever able to run that particular stack, and
Yeah.
if you really want to take that to the next level, pair a non-stim thermogenic on it, such as Molotov or Caliente. Brother, it is one of the best stacks you can run in your life.
Nice. No,
Yeah.
I'll consider that, man. It's like the more you talk about this stuff, you need to you should do like an ebook or publish a little book like the high stim I don't know what you'd call it. Stim formula recipe book or something like that, right? That'd be cool. That'd be a hit for sure.
Yo, do you remember? I'm dating myself right now, but do you remember back in the day, like when you used to pirate stuff on LimeWire and Kaza and all that
Oh yeah.
stuff?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember this ebook that used to go around called The Anarchist's Cookbook by the Jolly Roger?
Yep.
Oh my God, man.
Yes.
When you were telling me about making an ebook about all these concoctions, I just thought of The Anarchist Cookbook. If you guys are younger than us, Google The Anarchist Cookbook, but maybe don't download the file because you might have some eyes watching. Maybe just go on the Wikipedia and kind of read up about it a little bit.
Yeah,
But
yeah. You didn't hear it
oh
from
my God.
us.
No, you didn't hear anything from us. No, you definitely did not. But yeah, man, that is one hell of a stack. I actually have a video that I did over a year ago when before I even had this whole crazy studio here, when I had my freaking bench behind me. When I first started the channel, I had a video called Heist and Ace's Favorite Stacks, Volume 1. And I always intended to make more volumes, but I just never did. Maybe it's time for Volume 2. Guys, let me know in the comments down below. Leave your comments. Let me know if Heist and Ace should bring back Heist and Ace's favorite stacks because I have quite a few that I could think of, and it'll make for some good content. But with that being said, I think we are up to the final segment here because we've been
Yep.
talking for a little while. I've enjoyed our conversation tremendously today, and we definitely got to do it again. But I want to talk about the trends in the current fitness supplement space. There's always trends that come out, and usually one company does something, and then you're going to see a bunch of copies or people have their own take on it. So, two off the top of my head, about a year and a half ago, I forgot which company released it first, but they came out with liquid glycerol. And then, like, literally every company right now has their own form of liquid glycerol, which, for the record, I'm okay with because I love glycerol pumps. I know not everybody likes the swole pumps. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". I'm carrying a little bit of extra weight. So for me, having that big swole look, I
Mhm.
love it. I'm all about it. So I like the liquid glycerol. And now you're seeing another trend where they're adding stimulants. I think Centurion Labs was the first one that did it with their God of Thunder. And then you had Panda do it with the collaboration with Pump Sauce. They added some thermogenics, a little bit of caffeine, I think 1 milligram of alpha. Bro, that thing hit pretty freaking hard. I was sweating but pumped up. It was surprisingly way better than I expected. So that's a trend. The glycerol is a big trend that's going on, and also I feel like this is already about a year and a half in the making. But with proteins having inclusions, I feel like back in the day that wasn't a thing, but now you're having all these crazy exotic flavors. You got like Thanksgiving pumpkin pie flavor,
Yep.
Dubai chocolate, cheesecake, and Like the one I just opened like 3 days ago from Extremist Cartel, their ISO cartel. I have the one with the peanut butter inclusions, the little Reese's Pieces crushed up, which, I enjoy it. It tastes good, but to me, that's more of like a dessert type of protein, something I would have like once or twice a week. But those are two off the top of my head. What are some trends that you like in the current fitness supplement space and some that you're not such a big fan of?
Yeah. I think, one thing that I like kind of like contrasted to where we were with YouTube sort of when I was getting into it in the early 2000s. I think that there's way more accessibility across the board. Like I like that fitness in and of itself is a booming industry. I think that it provides a lot of accessibility. With that comes, there's always the good and the bad, right? There's a lot of like young folks, maybe they get into things like SARMs and they abuse it, kind of gives it a bad rap. Same thing with peptides. But I do like overall, one of the good things about the internet and social media is it's giving way more accessibility. You have a way more, information on workout sets, on diet, way beyond, back in my day, it was bodybuilding.com, and there was maybe
Mm.
one or two. I think it was what was his name? Scobie. Scobie,
Scooby,
yeah, on YouTube. Like he was like the YouTube guy, and that's
of course, man.
that's that's
Scooby.
that's it. That's where you turn. So I think it's cool to see like there's a lot more people open to honest dialogue, just kind of chatting informally, even formally. You just have so much access to cool information, right? And you're not limited to kind of like one talking head or one standard. I think that's a really cool thing.
You mentioned YouTube, so let's touch upon that a little bit. Are there any specific fitness channels you're into, or I hate using the term influencer. I think it's such a cringe term, but yeah, like any YouTube channels you're into. I used to follow a lot, but then over the years they got very repetitive because there's only so much you can regurgitate information. So I unsubbed from a lot of them. I used to be very big into Greg Doucette back in the day, but I can't stand his content from like, 6 months ago and onwards. I think he got some new editor. The kids today call it brain rot. I don't know if
Yep.
you've ever heard the term brain rot before, but yeah, it's all like quick cuts and just memes and little sound effects, and
Mhm.
it drives me fucking crazy, bro. And I'm somebody that I do believe I have mild ADHD. I'm kind of all over the place myself, but not to that level. This just takes things. It drives me crazy, man. And I used to love his content. I'll still watch some of his old videos, even stuff about steroids, stuff that I'm never going to take in my life, but just fascinating hearing from an IFBB pro about that kind of stuff, and I feel like it's almost incredible in a way because back in the day, you would have to get a coach and whatnot and pay hundreds and thousands of dollars to learn this kind of information. And you have it there, on the internet for free, which
Yep.
I think is pretty incredible. A lot of people take that for granted. We do live in the age of information, and that is, a good thing and a bad thing. But, on YouTube, there was a lot of channels I used to follow. I still follow Buff Dudes. Are you a fan of Buff Dudes?
Yes. Yeah, I've actually been watching them since, geez, like I feel like 2019 or something like that. Like quite a long while since the early days. But to your point
Yeah,
though, like I've really kind of turned away from, Greg Doucette, some of the things what is it? It's Jim. I think his name's Jim, but it's Athlean X. Have you ever heard of
Athlean X. Yeah, yeah,
Athlean
of
X? Yeah, and
course.
it's like I got kind of turned off by that. So it's almost like how like Tim Pool. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was a
Sure.
smaller, kind of news reporter, and he got bigger than like primetime CNN and stuff during COVID because people just trusted it more. I think it's
Yeah.
cool, like on YouTube with a lot of these smaller people. They're doing it for the passion, right? The love of the fitness
Hmm.
industry, not the paycheck. So you can kind of spot which ones are mainstream and which ones are legit. At least I can. So I've turned away from a lot, and I've turned to like really honestly, like you said, I use a lot of AI to kind of help me source like multiple forms. If I just have questions on something, I'll kind of take, lead with AI and rather than going to like YouTube for all that stuff, because YouTube's some of the big ones kind of ruin it, but there's some cool ones out there.
You know what drives me absolutely ballistic, man? And I'm not trying to take shots at anyone in particular, but there is one person in particular that kind of made this his thing. Not going to mention his name, but I'm sure you guys are going to know who I'm talking about. So this whole science-based lifting community, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty strong idea.
Okay, I don't like. Here's the thing. Obviously, science is science, and we're always learning new things as the years pass. But a lot of times, there's so much bullshit being put out there, And things that have been tried and true for years, things that work, that you could tell on people's bodies that these things have worked for 50, 60, 70 years.
Sure.
Suddenly they're going to tell you, oh, no, this is actually, you've been doing it wrong the entire time. It's actually like this and like this. And you have certain YouTubers, there's one big one, and there's a lot of smaller ones that do the same thing. And they're going to say, oh, the latest research, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, this dude is a freaking pencil neck. And, yeah, some of them do have good physiques, whatever. I'm not going to take away from them. But it just pisses me off that it's essentially like a gospel for them. I believe in common sense, man. Hard training, eating good, clean, healthy foods, being active, and, healthy body, healthy mind.
Sure.
People put these little scientific nuances and stupid stuff. Like they're going to tell you, oh, eating the egg yolk is bad. And they're going to push just eat egg whites for a while. But now suddenly, I literally just yesterday saw an article somewhere that's saying, oh, you actually should be eating the yellow egg yolks because all the vitamins in there. No shit. I knew that since I was a kid, even before I got into lifting or anything. Obviously, the yellow has all the vitamins. It's just common sense. You know
Yeah.
it since you're a kid, but you're going to go through these. And also with diets, like people were shitting on the Atkins diet when Dr. Atkins came out with it, but then it got rebranded as keto. It's no longer the Atkins diet,
Yep.
it's ketogenesis. FYI, same shit. And
Yep.
I've done both, and both were not a good experience for me. Not going to get too graphic with it, but let's just say it was a very, very uncomfortable experience for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are just going to go with the flow. People are going to talk about what they want to talk about. And that's pretty much it, man. But there's a lot of good channels out there.
Yeah.
I did mention Buff Dudes, and there's a couple more I'm forgetting. But yeah, these days I'm so busy. I don't even have time to really keep up with a lot of fitness YouTubers. But once in a while, I'll kind of browse and see what's going on there. Any other ones that come to mind that you follow currently, or if you want to give shouts out to anybody?
I mean, not really for like routines and things like that, but I mean, I've really enjoyed, obviously your content, your channel. I mean, I found out about the whole kind of weight loss thing just listening to one of your blogs, a couple months back. Like I love that kind of content. I think Jim Dad's done a really cool recent change in some of his stuff where he's doing more of that short form content too. I like
Yeah,
it in small doses if it's done right, right? Like I don't like you said the brain rot stuff where it's almost like a seizure because it's so much flashy stuff. But like, hey, a quick product recap, that makes sense. And I like stuff like that. I can kind of get a read and it's a nice like teaser, like, hey, do I want to watch this one? Or maybe I want to prioritize one over another one of his videos because I'm crunched for time. So that's a cool one. But
absolutely.
yeah,
Our
I think
buddy Dave also on Instagram. Dave does really good, like minute and a half, 2 minute reviews. He's a very nice guy, also, by the way.
yes, 100%.
Shouts
Yeah,
out to
no,
Dave.
I think that that's maybe, I think that's where he got the inspiration from. But I really enjoy like that kind of short form content. It's solid because not everybody has 30 minutes or an hour, and so yeah, just giving people the options. And I think on the other side of that too, it's like the blessing and a curse. There's so much information out there; it can almost be uh, tough to kind of decipher through, especially if you're maybe newer to the industry or don't have a lot of experience. And talking through that, I mean, I'm still really blown away that with the advent of the internet, all this new information, that we're still kind of in this like, you see all these people. It's the same thing that's been in the supplement industry for years, where it's like guys that are roided up, they're jacked, they're not natty, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's the marketing angles where you're trying to convince people maybe newer to the industry, oh, to look like this, if you just take this creatine, you're going to look like this. If you just slam back this protein, you're going to look like this. Take this pre-workout, you're going to look like this. Like it's so misleading. It's almost like cringe and almost unbelievable that it still happens like it does. But yeah, I'll kind of leave that there. Maybe what's your thoughts there? That's one big dislike from my end.
You see, I'm chomping at the bit, right? You see, I'm like eager to get something in about it because I reviewed Greg Doucette's Turkesterone. He pushes that stuff like there's no tomorrow. Literally, he will find a way to incorporate it into every one of his videos. And I paid for it because the dude's cheap. He didn't want to send it my way. Well, I didn't talk to him, but I talked to HTLT subs, right? Which, by the way, for the record, I'm affiliated with them, okay? But I never got anything from them.
Yeah.
And I did my Turkesterone review. I did it exactly, the way it was supposed to be done. And my diet was pretty good. My training was good during that entire time. And bro, it did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. And I've tried different like natty test boosters in the past, like the ones from Huge Supplements. They have these Sapogenics, Ecdysterone, which is by the way much cheaper than the Turk, and it actually worked pretty well. Listen,
Hmm.
I'm a natural and I'm realistic. I know I'm not going to take a pill or 5 pills a day or whatever, and I know it's not going to make me jacked. Like I'm realistic, but even if it gives me a 5% boost, 10% boost, and I notice a little extra striation there or there, I know it's doing something, right? If it gives me more energy, more libido, like I know that this thing is actually working. I'm very in tune with my body. I literally have one right here that's already empty from Unmatched longevity test, right? This was actually a very expensive one,
Yeah.
but I got sent this one for review. So I actually just finished running it. So that's another one I got to review. But my point is that with the Turkesterone, the advertising is so disingenuous, and I said it in my review, and I'm shocked that they haven't like removed me as an affiliate yet because I buried the product, like I buried it, you know. So I'm surprised I'm still affiliated with them, but I said the truth, you know, because they have these people that are so insanely jacked, right? And they're holding the Turk bottle there, like as if trying to tell you, oh, this is the reason why I have the physique I have now. Meanwhile, you know that's not the reason they have the physique, right? Chances are they're not even taking that Turk shit. So, you know, I mentioned that and I try to be respectful as possible. And I don't doubt it. I think he does source it from Uzbekistan or whatever. I believe it's the real deal, but
Yeah.
I don't think that the real deal actually does anything, you know?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where you get it. But yeah, that's my little rant.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And like, I mean, I'm still shocked, right? I mean, we saw that like back in my heyday, it was, Jay Cutler on everything and Ronnie Coleman, right? Like everything you bought, it was one of those two guys. And you're newer to it, so it's easy to, you kind of fall victim to the marketing, but it's so freaking prevalent, man. And I think, there's something to be said about like, I really just enjoy the fitness industry in general because it's about meeting someone where they're at, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're overweight or you're a toothpick or whatever these kinds of things are. Like fitness is a journey that is personal to you. And like you said, if you're noticing something, if it's a 5% gain on something or 10%, you're noticing little bit by bit, like that's what's going to make things sustainable. It's not always about like the end goal. It's kind of like they say, it's not always about the end, it's about the journey, right? Like so many people, I think it's easy to, crash out on when you take a certain product, be it SARMs, like a lot of these young guys get into SARMs and they think that they're going to be the next, oh geez, what's his name? I can't think of it right now.
Sam Solik,
Yeah, that's one. Okay, that's an example for sure. Yeah, they think
everybody
like
looks up to him.
yeah, like in 30 days, right? I'm gonna look like him. It's like it's not how it works. It's not realistic. So, hopefully people wise up fast. But I mean, I think that, that's never been something I've been interested in, for my marketing, my promotions, like kind of featuring a lot of that, or even chicks, right? Like sex sells, like I don't care, man. Like it's not all about being this way or that. Like if you're into fitness, you want to do some work with me, cool. But I'm just not into all the I don't know how to say it, man. Like the sleaze and the scum of it, right? Just my take.
It's it's funny you mentioned that. And one last point before we wrap this up,
Yeah.
because you mentioned the chicks and the sex selling. Have you ever checked out High Tech Pharma's Instagram page?
Oh yeah. All bikini chicks and this, that, and the other,
Bro,
right? Booty
that's
shorts.
all. That's literally all. And here's the thing: like you're gonna see this chick go on some balcony, and she's like sunbathing, wearing essentially nothing, and she's gonna have a bottle of freaking a tub of creatine, right? I
Yeah.
literally saw this the other day. She's gonna have a tub of creatine. She's gonna dry scoop the creatine, drink water in a very suggestive way where it kind of spills down on her chest, and
Yep.
then she's going and showing off her ass, bathing in the sun. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with creatine?
Yep.
Like, no one's taking creatine like that. But
Yep.
marketing will be marketing. Shouts out to High Tech Pharma. All right. We're going to wrap this up. Evan, I had a freaking amazing time. And this is our first time actually having a conversation that doesn't involve voice notes or text messages. So it was an absolute pleasure to finally meet you in person, or at least as close to in person as we can until we do eventually meet in person one of these days. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you. We're going to have to do it again. Go ahead and give all your plugs for Instagram, SuppLocker, and everything else you want to put out.
Yeah. Geez Louise, I gotta look it up, right? It's yeah, my Instagram's at sup_locker. So yeah, follow me on there. Definitely newer to that space, man, but welcome anybody to join along for the journey. It's where I put a lot of my marketing stuff, new products. Check out the site, check out Lockdown, lots of good regular discounts and stuff. And yeah, you may have not heard from one of Ace's other videos. I have a sort of a premium catalog. So if you guys are interested in some of the other stuff, maybe not on the site, reach out. You know where to find me. So yeah, awesome. Ace, really appreciate this, man. This was awesome. Definitely want to do this again and really appreciate you putting me on, man.
All right, guys. So you heard it from the man himself. Visit SuppLocker.com. And if you guys do want access to that premium menu, which does include some of the products we spoke about earlier that maybe are a little bit difficult to get, you can either message SuppLocker directly on Instagram. Evan answers relatively quickly. You can hit me up on Instagram at HighStimAce. You should already be following me if you're not yet. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you also visit SuppLocker.com, you can use my discount code ACE10, which saves you 10% off of everything on the site and also helps support the HighStimAce YouTube channel. And that is always much appreciated. Make sure to like the video, guys. Big like for me, for Evan. It greatly helps the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel. Click the little bell notification to get all of HighStimAce's latest updates. And I will see you all next time for the next HighStim pre-workout review. Take care, everybody. HighStim Ace, signing off.